means that we do not have to have warrantless searches. We don't need a national ID card. We don't need any secret prisons. Of torture. It's not necessary. And we must cling to the 800-year-old principle that is slowly slipping through our fingers, and that is the right of habeas corpus. These principles are not difficult to understand. We are now arriving at a point of great opportunity because more and more people are realizing that we have serious problems in the country. They're realizing that there's a financial crisis brewing, a dollar crisis brewing. The real income of Americans in the past 7 years has actually gone down. There is a transfer of wealth from the middle class and the poor to the wealthy. There are more billionaires than ever and more people struggling to make a living. Something is rumbling and coming together. And the other thing that has happened that has really fed into the campaign, and this is healthy, the people have lost confidence in the government solving our problem. Event here a couple of years ago when they called on the federal government, because the laws have been passed, especially since 9/11, that we would have the Department of Homeland Security make sure they take care of us completely and totally. So we have a hurricane hit, very, very severe. A lot of people suffered, wiped out nearly a city, and that is New Orleans. So what did we do? Did we resort to local ingenuity and local laws and property rights and the things that happened that we used in the past? No, everything was directed to Washington, D.C. We relied on total economic planning and economic control. We spent tens, I think it was $60 billion, and lo and behold, it didn't work. It was a total failure. The feds went down there. What was the first thing they did? They took the guns away from the people who wanted to live. So as we protect and restore our liberties, we certainly want to make sure that those who are in opposition, that they understand the clear meaning of the Second Amendment. The other thing that we have done here quite a few decades now is we have transferred the authority to run our schools to the federal government. And the federal government's running our schools about the way they repair New Orleans. And yet, medical care has been going downhill for the last several decades because the government's been too much involved, and now people are yelling and screaming that we need more central economic planning. Those same people who run our schools and repair New Orleans or pretend to repair New Orleans. We don't need more of that type of problem. We do have a financial problem. We have a lot of people who are falling through the cracks. And even those of us who believe strictly in the Constitution, there's no way you can turn all switches on and off just as we want. There has to be a transition period. The transition period that I fear is the collapse of the dollar and everybody being thrown out on the street and have political chaos. That's a possibility when you have runaway inflation and destruction of a currency. But in the meantime, there is so much in the logic of cutting where we can cut. And I would say the easiest place to cut and to get a consensus in Washington and with the people will be to cut this nearly $1 trillion that we spend maintaining an illegal empire around the world. Take, for instance, let's say we could save $200 or $300 million in 1 year. Take half of it and put it toward the deficit. That's a tremendous improvement. It would reassure the market. Take the other half and help the people who are taught decade after decade to be dependent on the government. We can't throw people out on the streets who have benefits and health benefits. We don't have to do that. But in the meantime, if we could save that amount of money, take care of the people in need, and then offer an opportunity to the young people and say, look, if you don't trust government to take care of you in your old age, and you want to go on your own, and you want to have self-reliance, we'll let you get out of this system, out of the medical system. Structure we can't ignore. Some of it has been around for a long time with the federal government, some of it was not necessary, and it's ever growing. But there's always a fight over the political pie, over who gets the money, who gets to build the bridges. Sometimes they build bridges, they forget some bridges, and they build bridges to nowhere. Who knows well, how they do it. But what has happened today, though, is we as Americans are being taxed constantly to blow up bridges around the world. And then we're taxed to rebuild the bridges around the world. And I would say if we could get the people to accept this consensus, save this money, don't blow up those bridges, don't rebuild the bridges, don't spend that money, and start looking at our own bridges at home and rebuild our own bridges. There's so much opportunity for us, and it is not complex at all. It's found in individual liberty and confidence. We as a country and as a people have lost our confidence that freedom works. Freedom does work. For many years, the constitutionalists, the conservatives and libertarians have not done a good job in grabbing the moral high ground, because too often they have come across as being uncaring and not compassionate enough. And the liberal comes along, the big government person comes along, and he says, we're going to take care of you. We're going to give you free medical care and free education and free this. And nobody asks, well, where do you get all this free stuff? They never ask who they stole it from in the first place. So we have this opportunity to offer a solution. And once people realize that freedom is compassionate, you know, sometimes I wonder about this conservative, compassionate conservatism. You know, it's just more big government. Often think about, I've had some debates on the House floor, it had to do with freedom of choice in medicine. Because I'm a states' rights person, and also I believe in freedom of choice in medicine, states have tried to improve their laws by saying people who are dying with cancer and AIDS, they should have the right to use marijuana if it comforts them. That's a state law. The states passed the law, which should have been their business what to do. The individual should be able to make a freedom of choice and be adult enough to know how to make those choices. But what do we have? We have the compassionate conservatives come in and say, we'll put you in jail if you do that.